Whenever Nigel Farage is doing well politically, he is always somewhat undermined by questions of competence, borderline corruption, and dishonesty. Henry Riley has been having a look at some of the stories that have happened today, or in the last case. It's Monday, and this is where we are with Reform UK.
Well, there's a few different ones. Should we start in Kent, James, seeing as this was the shop window for the party, as Nigel Farage said? This was a sort of blueprint, the biggest of the 10 councils.
If you want to know
won.
what we'll be like in government, have a look at what we do in Kent.
Huge local authority, £2.5 billion budget, and if we've spoken before about the councillors, just to remind you, they've lost nearly a sixth of their councillors. So there's 9 they were elected as Reform in 2024. They're now no longer in the party. Some have been kicked out, some have been expelled, some suspended, some joined the independent reformers group that we spoke about, one of which wrote an erotic novel, and one has gone to UKIP. Now, the council back in the news today, they've been accused of telling a blatant lie by the Kent Labour Party. They claimed that they'd saved nearly £40 million in net zero savings, but 39.5 million to be precise. Those sort of documented savings were found actually in 2 lines of what was described as a potential capital project section of the budget plans, which would suggest that they didn't actually have identified funding, and the Labour councillor has said that they were cancelled projects that actually never existed and accused them of being made up. I have to say, James, a Kent spokesperson rejects this.
But you can't. So they've saved money by. Well, how?
By plans which were in the potential capital, so potential projects that were coming up that were initially...
So it wasn't money that was being spent?
It would appear from this, from the money hadn't actually been spent, no, but
40 million quid, so 40 in net zero saving?
Yeah. Well, that's what would have been saved if they had spent £40 million.
You know what I heard? They'd save £500 million by cancelling their space programme.
Oh, I see, because you could...
At Kent County Council. That would be the same principle, would it?
It would appear so. They do have to say that the Kent spokesperson said that the figures related to forward-looking assumptions in the published budget book.
Like a space programme?
Like a space programme.
So you come into power and you announce you've made loads of savings when you haven't actually saved anything. You're just not going to spend something in the future on something that you weren't spending anything on in the past.
Yes. Could I talk to you about Wales?
Please.
They've got
the mammals or the
the
it's not a principality, the country.
The country, yeah.
Kingdom.
They have a new leader in Wales. It's the first since 2021. You'll recall the Nathan Gill, who was previously the Reform leader in Wales. He, in 2025, was sentenced to 10.5 years in prison after admitting 8 counts of pro-Russian bribery.
Close friend and protégé of Nigel Farage.
He was an MEP at the same time as Nigel Farage. Their new leader is Dan Thomas, a former council leader. He was the Tory leader of Barnet Council.
Is that Barnet in Wales?
No, that's Barnet in North London. He was the leader of Barnet Council, Conservative, from 2019 to 2022. Nation Cymru reported on Friday that Mr Thomas, who's a former Conservative leader, as I say, had bought a house near Bath. That's Bath in England, to clarify. But the Reform UK Wales leader has said that he had moved back to Wales from London to raise his children, and reports that he didn't live here he labelled as smear attempts, and said that he actually had a property portfolio, but that he was living and had been living in Wales because in order to stand in the Senedd elections, given he's the leader of Reform in Wales and they're coming up in May, it's a legal requirement that the candidates live in Wales. Now, he says this is a smear from the Welsh establishment, that he does live in Wales, but I mean, the timeline is something...
He just gives you his address then.
Well, that's been tricky to obtain because Nation Cymru, who've done the sort of reporting on this...
Good report, that, actually. I read it at the weekend. Martin Shipton was the byline on the story, and it was actually a masterclass in journalism, I felt. Actually.
And he goes into huge detail about it.
Oh, that's why it's a masterclass.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, so for instance, the timeline is that Dan Thomas joined Reform in the summer, i.e. summer of last year, but he continued being a councillor for Finchley Church End in North London until December of last year, so until only a few months ago. But he claims he moved to Wales in 2024, which would suggest he was a North London councillor while living in Wales. He says that if he'd had a by-election, it would have been disruptive and cost the taxpayer tens of thousands.
What did he tell his colleagues in London when he left London? Did he tell them he was moving to Wales, or did he tell them he was moving to Bath?
He told them he was moving to Bath initially. The other curious part of this is that Nation Cymru also report that he was not on the electoral register in the area with which he has said that he is from, and so that's Blackwood in Caerphilly, in that particular county borough. They report, Nation Cymru, that he was not on the electoral register in December 2025.
I suppose that's the thing about property portfolios. Sometimes you can... Didn't Farage buy a house by accident, or say he'd bought a house when he hadn't?
His wife owns the house in Clapton. Partner. Can I talk to you as well about a Reform councillor from Worcestershire who resigned on television yesterday?
Is it from Reform UK, is it?
This is from Reform UK,
okay.
Yes.
This is all in one day. These are all the scandals and problems surrounding Nigel Farage's outfit, and it's only Monday. It's not even lunchtime yet.
Yeah, 24, 48 hours.
OK, carry on.
David Taylor, who represents Redditch East in Worcestershire, has left the party live on TV. This was during BBC Politics Midlands. Worcestershire County Council recently warned that it faced effective bankruptcy and has applied to the government for permission to increase council tax by up to 10% from April. I got on the phone to him earlier on, actually, Councillor David Taylor, and he told me why he's quit.
In all honesty, I've been thinking about it for several months. I like to think I was voted in for my transparency and honesty, and if there's something I don't agree with, I'll stand up and say it. The people I represent are struggling as it is, and I cannot stand in front of them and say, we're going to put your council tax up by 10%, and then on the other hand say, at the same time, we're going to pay a senior director a 10% annual bonus. I can't do that. That's not why I'm in this. That's not why I came into politics. I came into politics to improve services. The people running the council today in Worcestershire, the leadership haven't been strong enough, in my opinion.
A 10% proposed increase to council tax in that area. Councillor David Taylor says that at a time where they are looking at this retention bonus payment for executives stuck in the craw. Lastly, there is one more, James.
Let's do it after the news.
OK, sure.
There's so much going on in just that one party that we're going to actually straddle the news and come back to it later. Well, I should also remind people that we are talking about the big political story of the moment, which is the resignation of the Downing Street Director of Communications, Tim Allen, following fast upon the departure of Morgan McSweeney, whose job description temporarily eludes me, but luckily Henry Riley is here.
He was Chief of Staff.
Thank you very much. And we will return to the question of what it is that perhaps best explains Keir Starmer's perceived unsuitability for the role when he arrived in Downing Street with such high expectations. Is it possible that the Welsh fella, could his girlfriend have bought a house without anyone knowing quite where the money had come from, but not yet registered it? I don't know where that came from either.
No, I'd have to have a look into that.
All right. Anyway, we'll get back into that. And the other story that Henry has unearthed for your delectation is arguably the most embarrassing or potentially difficult of all four. That's 4 Reform UK stories, and it is now 12 noon on Monday. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where Henry Riley has just moonwalked into the studio to bring us up to date with the latest developments in the land of Nigel Farage. Any updates on yesterday? Have we found out where the new leader of Reform in Wales, who is not the one that's currently in jail for taking bribes from a Kremlin stooge for polluting British discourse by spreading Russian propaganda? Although Vladimir Putin, as far as we're aware, is still the world politician that Nigel Farage admires most. We need to make this clear. The bravest man he's ever met is Donald Trump, but the politician he admires most is Vladimir Putin. And is the Welsh leader of Reform UK, do we know where he lives yet? Does he live in Bath, as many people believe, and as he told his colleagues in Barnet he was moving to? Yeah. Or does he actually live in Wales?
So we're still waiting because we need to get clarity from the electoral roll as to where he is living. It's true to say, according to reports, that when he was leader, he's obviously the Reform leader in Wales. He was the Tory leader of Barnet Council in North London. He told his colleagues there he was moving to Bath. But is now the Reform leader in Wales. At one point was concurrently in Wales whilst being a councillor for Finchley Hall in North London.
Can't he just give you his address and shut all this nonsense down?
I've asked for a postcode, so I'll let you know when I get an update on that.
Okay, well, hang on, I think we've got a postcode.
Oh, yeah.
Right here.
Bird of Manning.
Oh, no. Oh, flipping.
I thought it was a postcode.
Sorry, no, I thought it was a postcode. Okay, so the other story that we had a look at yesterday was this letter that had, in clear breach of electoral law, I think, been sent to many homes in the constituency, the Manchester constituency, where the next big by-election takes place.
This is a letter that was circulated in Gorton and Denton from... we've had confirmation, Patricia Clegg, not that there was any doubt, but she is a person, she's 74 years old, and this was a handwriting-style letter that was given out. The issue is, and there's been an apology from the West London printing company, that it didn't have the Reform imprint on it. However, further criticism for Reform from Patricia Clegg's son, who's Andrew Clegg. Now, he is a British Army veteran who said that Reform have now lost his support as a result. Now, this is because of comments that have emerged on Facebook, purported comments below Matthew Goodwin's post. And to remind listeners, he is the Reform candidate for that upcoming by-election later this month. He has commented, the son, Andrew Clegg, saying that his mother has been hounded online as a result, and that, crucially, she never gave Reform UK sign-off. Now, Reform UK say that she is a party member, Patricia Clegg, and they, a spokesperson said, we've been in contact with her and her family. We apologise for the distress caused by a genuine error. But the son, though, has said her name has been plastered all over everywhere because of Reform.
They didn't ask her. They asked her first.
Well, Andrew, her son, Reform say they did ask her,
right,
but her son Andrew, based on these Facebook comments, would suggest he is alleging that they did not get final sign-off before using her name.
And now she's getting pushed around from pillar to post by various people online and what have you, and the poor woman presumably doesn't quite know how this has happened.
The allegation from her son is that she didn't really know what she was getting herself in for, would be the implementation.
The printing company that's taken all the blame for this, I read somewhere, has done about £1.5 million worth of business with Nigel Farage's outfit over the last couple of years. I don't know why I feel the need to mention that, but I just thought that I would because I really like numbers.
Me too.
So, wait, you'll like this one. You ready?
Yeah.
So, they're skating on thin ice in Manchester.
That's a good one. This is with regards to... moving on story now. So this is a West Northamptonshire council, which is one of the 10 councils that Reform UK run. They are in a spot of bother because they installed a Festive ice rink that was there, if you live in the local area, it was there from the 4th of December to the 4th of January. They said that they broke even, which... great, that's a very nice thing to do, to have an ice rink in the local council, exactly what local authorities should be doing. The issue, though, is that according to Freedom of Information requests, the ice rink actually cost $335,000, and would suggest that Reform then didn't break even, because they said they broke even, as I say. So the cost of it, $335,000. I know you like numbers, James, as you said. Yeah. In terms of ticket and bar sales, it raised $123,000. Which, if you do the maths, is about more than $200,000 difference. Not to tell you that, because as you say, you like your numbers. But the shortfall that Reform had claimed is made up from the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. So government funds went to sort of cover 70 grand's worth.
On anything.
Could have been spent on anything,
including military heroes.
And 107 grand was from the council's culture and events budget, and for a bit from the town council and other areas. So the opposition parties are saying you can't break even based on other funds. I mean, you have to have sort of sold tickets.
You break even by covering your costs with your sales.
Yeah, quite. Which there's a 200 grand shortfall. So say opposition parties.
David's been in touch. He says, "What's happened to Henry's Reform erotic novels feature?"
Yeah, I need to go through the new defectors and see if there's any more.
We found a couple. I mean, we had
a few.
Yeah. From Northamptonshire to Worcestershire. I've kind of spoiled this one when I was talking earlier to Alan in Manchester. Yes. But this is another, yet more evidence of their cost-cutting skills.
Well, I think it's important to say, so this is not the Shop Window Council. That was Kent.
Yeah.
But this is nonetheless a huge local authority, Worcestershire County Council. This has been controversial because there are some opposition councillors who say that Reform promised to lower council tax, or certainly not to increase it. Richard Tice, who's the deputy leader, has said Worcestershire's finances were the worst of any Reform council. And Jo Monk, who's the council leader, she was in the previous Tory administration as well at one point. She has described the finances as a mess and said the council needs £71 million in exceptional financial support to avoid a bankruptcy notice. The budget gap currently, according to council documents, looks to be around 74.3 million. And bosses have now applied for 71.9 million from the exceptional finance support from the government. But the real kicker, and hence why we spoke to David Taylor yesterday, I played a clip for you, who's the councillor who left live on TV. That's over the council tax. You can currently, the maximum limit is around 4.9, well, it is 4.99% to increase council tax by. The Reform-led council wants to increase it by 9.99%, which is 5%, I know you like your numbers, above the maximum limit.
They said this is all predicated on the electoral promises that there is loads of waste and we will go in and save it. And then they get in and they look for the waste. And amazingly, after 14 years of austerity, it turns out there isn't any.
And they've set up this DOLGE, which is the Department of Local...
Why do you say it like that? Gold?
Because Department of Local Government Efficiency. So it's not DOGE, it's DOLGE.
Because that's gone really well.
But this is the I think they would say it's...
The pound shop, the Temu version of Doge.
In early stages.
Gold. Right, but they're not finding any money to save, except the money they found yesterday that they hadn't found at all.
Well, in Worcestershire, they've got to find £71 million in exceptional financial support, but that's not through savings, that's through the government.
Have they thought of an ice rink?
I don't know, I'll find out.
And this is a story, of all the fun we have together on the radio, I'm not sure we've ever covered a story less suited for this medium than the one you're about to tell us about now.
Yes, this is a barbers in Glasgow, in Partick, and which is sort of Glasgow West End, and they have decorated the front of this Turkish barbers shop with pictures of Nigel Farage with an array of different haircuts. This is because, and there is a serious point behind it, of comments that Nigel Farage made on this station speaking to Nick Ferrari.
Any market town in the country, you'll find half a dozen barber shops. You know the drill, you go in, no customers, cash only, Lamborghini out the back. And it's been going on for years, and I've been banging on Nick about it forever on social media and talking there to LBC's Henry Riley. And I've just been astonished that the police have done nothing. And we know, of course, they're not Turkish anyway. They're Iraqi or Iranian or Kurdish. In fact, there's probably half a dozen crossing the channel right now that'll be in one of the shops next week.
Oh, dear.
That was
who said rhetoric was dead? Well, you'd stick your own little advert in there.
Well, no, it's because I'd asked him a question at a press conference. This is yonks ago, James, but it was on your show as well. I asked them what the issue with Turkish barbershops was, and he said I hadn't ever been out of London, which is not true. Oh. This particular shop is run by Ali, who runs it, and he got the Rebel Bear, which is an artist, got in touch with him about decorating it. I mean, as you say, you need to sort of see the images, but it's well,
can you talk us through them?
Farage
you describe
with different haircuts
in the style of a hair correspondent.
Well, one I think is David Bowie. It looks very much like David Bowie's haircut.
Which era, Henry? Come on. Aladdin Sane? Tin Machine?
Oh, I don't know.
Ziggy Stardust? I mean, you can't
Ziggy
say David
Stardust,
Bowie's haircut, honestly.
Started in Tolworth.
It's like saying Nigel Farage's policy platform. It changes every 30 seconds.
Well, I'll tell you what, while I get into these pictures, I spoke with Ali, barber, Ali the barber, who's done this outside his shop, and he told me more.
In my opinion, the way that Nigel Farage was talking about the Turkish barbers and the businesses, it's been kind of damaging them and putting them down. In my opinion, it was kind of unfair to just see all the shops, Turkish barbers, in one eye, and it says they are kind of scams and they're all empty and they don't pay taxes. I actually myself accept court in my business, and I'm trying to be as legit as possible. And then I didn't not sure why he just picked on us like that.
And what customers saying about it? Because there's quite a few, from what I can make out, there's 7 pictures of Nigel Farage on the front of your shop now.
Yeah, I've been moving him about.
Right.
But to be honest, my shop is now turned out like a museum. Everybody's just coming and taking pictures. But I can promise you that 10 out of 10, people are happy and they just thumbs up and they're telling me good job.
That's Ali, who runs this barbers in Glasgow.
So there's one which the kind of sub-merchant ivory curtains that everybody had in the 1980s. That's bottom right. You're probably too young to remember that. Everyone had that kind of centre parting. It's a bit Manchester. You remember that look with the Manchester parting, the curtains?
I thought it looked like Roger Allam from The Thick of It.
It does a bit, yeah. It does a bit. The one at the top is extraordinary. That's more sort of flock of seagulls. That's, again, a 1980s sort of George Michael, but with a touch of Limahl or Nick Kershaw just on the right-hand side of it. There's one that is...
David Beckham, maybe? Or?
Well, kind of. He's got spiky on top and then sort of fade with some... What do they call it? Is it carving? What do you do when you put shapes in it with the razor? Is there a word for that?
Oh, I don't know.
Oddly, there's none which feature him just with sort of quite a long fringe that comes down over his forehead and a little moustache, but maybe that'll be in the next tranche of photographs that are released. What's the name of the barber's shop?
Well, there's one... that's a good question. G11 is the name of the... G11 or
there's
G11.
more as well.
There's loads.
One where he looks like...
there's one where he's got...
Dumb and Dumber.
Things sticking out of his nose as well for the, get the
nostril clearing.
Nostril clearing.
Yes. What an imaginative business. That's the kind of entrepreneurial spirit that we should be cheering to the rafters, not accusing of lies.
And as Ali said, there are people are popping in just to get photographs as well. It's become a sort of museum, a shrine, his shop.
That's almost it, is it?
Yeah, that's it for today.
I've got one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it was 4 stories yesterday that should be receiving rather more attention, given where Reform currently sit in the polls. 4 more today, and it's only Tuesday.
I'll keep an eye out.
I've got 5. I've got a 5th one.
Oh, have you?
Who said, and I should make it clear that a full list of all the candidates that are running in Gorton and Denton will be available on our website if it is currently required to be. It's just me covering my backside because I'm terrified of by-elections. You know, the only time I've ever had an Ofcom complaint upheld, and I have received hundreds, if not thousands over the years, was over a by-election, Henry. I'm not going to say any more about it.
All right.
I get very nervous. But you can find a full list of all the candidates in the Gorton and Denton by-election up on the LBC website. Can you find pictures of Nigel Farage's variety of haircuts yet, Eleanor, as well? Is that up? Do we know? Well, it should be. I don't want to miss a trick in socials. Who said...
Yeah.
Very recently that Nigel Farage had no answers to Britain's problems, who said that if he became Prime Minister, support for him would collapse quickly due to him being, quotes, fairly divisive in the country, who said that the Reform Party doesn't have the answers to Britain's problems, and that they would alienate voters in much the same way that Liz Truss had done during her disastrous premiership, describing his sort of traditional Thatcherite economics as being very unpopular. Do you know who that was? For story number 5 on day 2 of this week. I'm not going to phone a friend. I'll take a punt here. I'd assume the Labour candidate. Well, no. Actually, no. It's the Reform UK candidate in Gorton and Denton. Describing the leader of Reform UK as being pretty much useless and deeply divisive. So I don't know if that's stopped clock twice a day territory, is it, or not? But as I say, a full list of candidates in that by-election is available at the LBC website. Great stuff. We can't stretch this out for another day, can we?
We'll see what happens.
It's 11:50. You can tell that things have happened on the programme when I start dreaming up titles for segments. Unfortunately, 2 things happen when I dream up a title for a segment. The first is, well, one of 2 things happen. The first is I immediately forget about it and it disappears, or I get very excited and order a jingle that takes 9 months to arrive because everybody's too busy giving the newsagents whatever it is they've asked for recently, and I have completely lost all sense of enthusiasm by the time the jingle finally arrives. But anyway, we're thinking of calling this the Farage Files, because Henry Riley and I have this week stumbled into an investigation into what would happen if we treated Nigel Farage's outfit in the same way that the Daily Mail treats it, well, in the same way that the Daily Mail and most of the UK media treats the Labour Party. We had 4 stories on Monday. We had 4 stories yesterday. We've probably run out of stories by today, Henry.
5.
You sound like Len Goodman.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. 7? No, 5 stories today. Sorry, that was a bit much, wasn't it? Yeah, I mean...
take it away, Maestro.
Okay. Well, let's go first with working from home, which was obviously a conversation on LBC yesterday and today. This rally that Nigel Farage gave in Birmingham's, he said, quotes, people aren't more productive working at home. It's a load of nonsense. They're more productive being with fellow human beings.
How does he know? He hasn't had a job since he joined UK like it.
He said they're more productive being with fellow human beings
Right.
and working as part of a team. You can't go on the sick because you've got mild anxiety. And he went on and said, people aren't productive working at home. But we found 2 jobs by Reform UK in the last couple of months, one that's still active that do have home working. As
What, his own outfit?
Yes, working for Reform. So one current job vacancy, James, in case you're interested, is Regional Director for Reform South Central Region. It carries a 50 grand salary.
Okay.
And the location is home working with occasional travel within the region.
Right.
There's a second job.
Who's he going to blame for this?
This second's job is on Grab Jobs. It's just closed. It was for something previously, but that was a remote / work from home job to be a by-election manager for the party.
So that's the only... I mean, there could be more, but we've only spent about 10 minutes looking, and those are two jobs that are currently being advertised in his own outfit.
Yeah.
That involve working from home while he is simultaneously making strange speeches at strange rallies about why he would abolish working from home. I mean, there's nothing to stop him abolishing working from home in his own company, is there?
No, nothing to stop
But he
him.
hasn't.
Well, according to these job adverts, no. One of them's still up, one of them has closed. Happy to be clear, but one of them is still up.
Have you applied?
No.
Go undercover.
No.
If you shaved your moustache off.
Yeah, I don't know. There's not much to shave off, to be honest. Other stories, James. Let's go to the Russia debate that took place in Parliament.
Yes.
Yeah, this was on Monday. It's because of a petition, that carried 114,000 signatures and demanded a public inquiry into the sort of relationship with Russia across the political spectrum.
You'd expect, I mean, Farage wants to make things absolutely crystal clear that Nathan Gill, his very close friend and protégé and the leader of his party in Wales, who was convicted and sent to jail for taking bribes from a Kremlin stooge for essentially injecting propaganda talking points into public discourse. Farage must be very keen to distance himself from this. Did he speak at it, or was he just in the audience?
No, I mean, it was well attended, but there was no Reform UK MP. They've now got 8 who attended that debate.
The 30p Lee?
No, none of them attended this.
The woman driven mad by black faces on television adverts?
Sarah Pocham was not at the debate. They've been accused of pandering to Russia.
Remember any others? Who were
by
the others?
one Labour MP. It was Sarah Pocham, Lee Anderson, Danny Kruger.
Was Danny Kruger not there?
Danny Kruger wasn't there. Suella Braverman.
Was Suella Braverman there?
Suella Braverman wasn't there. Robert Jenrick.
So none of them were there?
None of them.
Okay. That's a shame.
But the government does have this independent Rycroft review that's set to publish next month, by the way. That was in the aftermath of the Nathan Gill sentencing, which is going to look at the relationship with Russia.
Of course, should remind our listeners that Vladimir Putin is the politician on this planet that Nigel Farage admires the most. It's important to distinguish him from Donald Trump, who is the bravest man that Nigel Farage has ever met. That's 2, as far as if I'm keeping count correctly.
That's 2. You're a fan of your numbers. 3 is Reform donation, which is this. I mean, this has been bubbling away for a little while. It's fairly complex, so stay with me. But it was initially broken by the Sunday Times, and the Financial Times now have done some reporting into it because the senior Labour MP Liam Byrne, who chairs the Business Select Committee, has said Companies House needs to look at this. It all centres around a £200,000 donation to Reform UK. And links to an Iranian-born billionaire. That's Sashan Gandhari, who's a British citizen. Now, the donations are made by John Richard Simpson, who's a church warden and conveyancer, and he's listed as the person with control of this company, IAL Limited. As I say, but last year, £200,000 of donations to Reform UK. But there's now been links from that company that he's involved with and the Gandhari family. Now, they're important because they paid for Nigel Farage's recent trip to the World Economic Forum in Davos.
Oh, I see.
They also claim that Nigel Farage was an advisor to their organisation.
Yes.
Nigel Farage, spokesperson, categorically denies that, but did say that their
what were
company...
they paying for then?
Well, they did pay for Nigel Farage to be a delegate.
Yeah, but what do they get in return?
Well, that
if he's not advising them.
That's unclear. But they paid for Mr. Farage and a member of staff to go to the World Economic Forum. The IAL, the company, said that this church warden, John Richard Simpson, is the person with significant control. But they did confirm that the Gandhari family are clients of RAL Limited.
3.
Well, number 4...
Or 11, if we were to be covering the whole week.
4, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, 11. So this would be number 12.
Carry on. Yeah.
12, yeah. University Society. This is Bangor.
Damn humanities degree, honestly.
No, it's social science after all, isn't it? This is a university of Bangor, or actually not the university, because this is a student debating society. Now, what happened here is it's caused a bit of a stooshy up in Wales, because Reform's head of policy, Zia Youssef, has now threatened to withhold funding from Bangor University after their student...
Oh, after winning power?
Well, yeah, after winning power. No, not that he pulls the purse strings at the moment.
Right.
The Student Debating Society there refused to host two figures from Reform UK, one of whom was Sarah Pochin, the MP who you referenced earlier on.
The one who's driven mad by blackfaces on the television.
Who made that comment and has apologised. Bangor University received £30 million in state funding a year. Zia Youssef said that much of that comes from Reform voting taxpayers. I wonder how they would feel being without it. However, Reform's Welsh branch, because they've got that new leader that we spoke about, Dan Thomas.
Do we know where he lives yet?
He claims to live in Wales but has an address in Bath and was leader and is a councillor in Barnet up until a few months ago. In Barnet, London. He has said that that's not Reform Party policy. They don't want to defund Bangor University. Now, to get expertise on this, I spoke earlier with Podrick Reedy, who is editor-at-large of The Lead. He, crucially as well, was previously at Index on censorship. And he told me about the sort of the idea here from Reform and the distinction between the society and the university.
What's happened here is that Reform have reached out and asked to speak. The Debating Society, which is a private members' society, which can dictate its own rules and who it wishes to speak and not to speak at their events, has declined and quoted there, said that Reform and Sarah Pochin are contrary to their values. And Reform have gone out with the story saying that they've been banned. Now, they've been no more banned than, say, an LBC listener caller who does not get picked for the show that day, if I write an article and it doesn't get submitted to a newspaper and it doesn't get used, that doesn't mean I'm banned. That means I don't have any right to speak there in the first place. Or indeed, if I was to say to Reform that I want to speak at their conference and they politely declined, I don't think I claim that I've been banned. I hadn't been invited in the first place. But of course, Reform have got the headline they want now. And they can make a fuss. They can make Trumpian noises about defunding the university, which has nothing to do with the decision. So it's a weird success for Reform, but it has nothing to do with free speech.
So dishonest and pathetic. So if we don't invite Sarah Pochin to our birthday parties, we'll be accused of banning her.
Yes,
or if she asks to come to our birthday party.
And we said no.
Certainly not.
I've got an invite
I've
list.
got black friends. I don't want you to be driven mad by their faces, you might say. Then we'd be banning her from our birthday party.
Well, quite. It wouldn't be banned.
Certainly not wanting her at our birthday party.
And that distinction there, as Podrick Reedy makes about the university, very keen to stress that they have not banned Reform, rather one of their independent societies run by students.
You pay to be a member of, presumably. I was at the University College Dublin Philosophical Debating Society last week. And, they are incredibly independent and entirely student-run. It's got absolutely nothing to do with central funding.
Yes.
Which they know. This is what we're reading between the lines. Podrick's well aware that they know this Reform. They're just trying to they are demonstrating contempt for the intelligence of their own supporters because they know that the headline and the provocation will work, even though the facts don't back up the claim at all. Pathetic, as I say, and dishonest. That's 3.
No, 4. That was 4. This is number 5. One more now. We're going to be slightly careful because obviously there's a by-election coming up. So this is with regards to the Gorton and Denton by-election. This has been widely publicised.
Full list of candidates is available at lbc.co.uk.
Thank you. There was Matt Goodwin, who is the Reform candidate. There was a hustings last night.
Well, he was in one of yesterday's stories slagging off Nigel Farage for being potentially an absolutely rubbish Prime Minister. But that was yesterday's story, not today's.
In a historic post, he did say that Mr Farage does not have the answers to Britain's problems and that Reform doesn't have the answers. But he's the candidate, and he pulled out of a hustings. The organisers, sources close to the organisers, have told me that happened last minute and only minutes before he posted on social media. Now, there are 2 reasons. The official reason, Matt Goodwin says in his statement, I've never been one to shy away from free and fair debate. I have serious concerns about the impartiality of the hustings that have been organised for tonight. Previous statements by the organising group give the clear impression that a fair and level platform will not be provided for all candidates. On that basis, I will not be attending. Now, it's organised by a local group called Local Voices. It was at the Gorton Methodist Church, and each candidate had 2 minutes to answer each question. I've also spoken with sources close to organising the event, and a charge levied at Mr Goodwin, which he has not responded to as of yet, is that he asked for a green room before the hustings.
What, all to himself?
Yeah, well, to have a sort of private moment maybe before the debate starts. But they told him that at a Methodist church...
He's working on an erotic novel.
Well, that would give us more content. But he did tell us that the sort of claim is that because it was at a Methodist church, James,
yes,
they're not a plenty green rooms at Methodist churches.
Presumably, and not much else.
Yeah, and so they I think the point was made that wouldn't be possible.
Right.
And then, obviously, the green room issue was not an issue in the end because Mr Goodwin did not attend the debate.
Dear 4 of the Farage files.
What have you got? Jingle, I like that.
There you go.
Can I start with an apology?
Yes.
I got something wrong the other day. I was talking about Dolge, remember the Department of Local Government Efficiency on Kent County Council, and talking about the head there, Matthew Fraser-Moat. He's actually resigned from that post because he said to the Financial Times that they had, quotes, not actually made any cuts, but happy to clear up the fact that it was about 8 days ago that he actually left Dolge.
Right. So they haven't found any dolging.
They say they have, but the head of Dolge, previous head of Dolge, has said they didn't.
Right. Okay. What else have we found?
Right. If we start with Staffordshire,
How many?
There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 today. If that's all right. So I'll be nice and quick.
So we're up to 18. Dear 4, 18 stories in the big Farage house. Carry on.
In Staffordshire, the man who was the leader, Chris Large, has stepped down from the leadership and cabinet responsibilities. He stood down last week.
This is big.
He said it was due to a family bereavement, but it turns out he is also being investigated over racism allegations.
What? A member of Nigel Farage's outfit being investigated over racism allegations? Whatever next.
The BBC has seen confidential emails that show Staffordshire County Council has referred at least one complaint over claims Councillor Large wrote or endorsed racist comments on TikTok. Councillor Large was due to replace Councillor Cooper. Councillor Cooper himself resigned in December over a cloud of racism allegations.
What? A member of Nigel Farage's outfit resigning under a cloud of racism allegations? Whatever next?
Councillor Cooper, in response to a post about David Lammy, said no foreign national or first-generation migrant should be allowed to sit in Parliament. A council spokesperson said they will consider the complaints in line with the council's conduct procedure. So that's Staffordshire.
Wow. So that would be Suella Braverman and Nadine Zahawi off the... not that Nadine Zahawi is currently on the reform benches, but that would be a number of their recent sign-ups who would be unable to sit in the House of Commons, were Councillor Cooper to have got his way.
And he is now no longer taking the reform whip.
Well, what else have you got? Staffordshire.
If we go to Leicestershire, which is another one of those authorities, reform control, this is a curious one because the Reform Council leader has written to Reform UK asking them to suspend a Reform councillor. This is in regards to Joseph Bohm, who used to be the deputy leader of Leicestershire County Council.
Right.
He shared a post saying, "I stand with ICE," just hours after the fatal shooting of the nurse Alex Pretty in Minneapolis last month.
Right.
The Reform leader of that council, Dan Harrison, criticised Councillor Bohm, his colleague, and said that, well, he's now actually written to Richard Tice, urging him to kick Joseph Bohm out of the party. He
was deputy leader 10 minutes ago of Leicestershire Council, wasn't he?
He was, and then he got removed from that post. Then he said he stands with ICE. Now, this letter that's been obtained, Dan Harrison wants him out of the party. He's written to Richard Tice. There have been 79 complaints, he also revealed, made about Reform UK councillors in Leicester since the 24 election, and in the letter that's also been passed on to the BBC, Harrison says about Councillor Bohm, Joseph's reaction, well, he's blaming it all on the woke left-wing fake news or smears. Reform have said we don't provide a running commentary.
So he posted it, and it's all the fault of the woke left-wing?
Yes.
What did they do? Hold a gun to his head and say, post your support for ICE on social media or we'll woke you to death?
He's talking about the reaction to it being woke and lefty liberals.
Right, people objecting to citizens being murdered by law enforcement officers on the streets of America. Down with that sort of thing, says only the woke. OK, next.
There's a few... quick one. Reform have dropped their environment advisor after a couple of weeks. It was revealed in The Guardian on the 30th of January that the Conservative Ben Goldsmith was going to be their environment advisor. They've now had to distance themselves from him because of he supports rewilding, and it's not gone down particularly well with farmers, is the understanding. So the National Gamekeepers Organisation is just one organisation who've raised concerns. He's a long-standing environmentalist. Nigel Farage wanted him to write Reform's green manifesto, but after 2 weeks, it appears he has been dropped.
And finally...
well, there's actually two more. One other very quick one. In Gloucestershire, just a quick... I know we're keeping an eye on the councillors who've left. Just to mark your card that Stuart Graham, who is on the Forest of Dean District Council, will now sit as an independent. He said, I've resigned as a political representative of Reform. I'm still a member of the party. He couldn't say why he's resigned from the group, but a spokesperson from Reform has confirmed that is the case. So just to let you know, a councillor in the last 24 hours has left. And finally, as you said, this is regards to the Reform Jewish Alliance, which has been launched. And
some front. Has he apologised yet to his Jewish schoolmates who remember him telling them that Hitler was right and making gas chamber jokes in their presence? And supported by now, I think, over 30 contemporaries. Has he apologised to them yet?
Well, Nigel Farage has rejected the allegations of anti-Semitism and racism, but this was a speech that took place at a central synagogue, the Central Synagogue in London, attended by around 200 people. This is what happened at one point early in proceedings.
This political organisation.
The Torah says to love the stranger, for we were once strangers in Egypt.
My ancestors fled pogroms. You incite our refugees.
Let him speak.
My mother didn't fight the Muslim fascists in Cable Street for this. An attack on one minority is an attack on all, I know.
That last clip you heard, or voice you heard, was Carla Bloom, who recalled her own family's history of facing persecution and fighting the far right in the 1930s. In case it was difficult to hear, she said, my mother didn't fight the Mosley fascists in Cable Street for this. Nigel Farage set up this organisation because it was, he says, after the he wanted a campaign to release the hostages previously held by Hamas. This particular event, though, there were demonstrators outside from those who were talking about the Dulwich connection, as you say, the allegations against Mr. Farage there. Clearly inside as well, there was strong feelings, as you heard from many of those hecklers or protesters or whatever you want to call them as well.
I would call them doughty defenders of decency, actually, and more power to their elbows. Farage has called the memories of racism and anti-Semitic bullying shared by a huge number of his contemporaries complete made-up fantasies. So well done, Carla Bloom and colleagues, for reminding some of the other people assembled there what decency looks like. And well done, Henry Riley, for bringing the Farage files into Dear 4.
Dear 5 tomorrow.
Why have you gone Welsh?
Oh, sorry, I thought that was I thought that's what you were doing, Cardiff.
The Dear 4 of the Farage files. Henry Riley is with us in the studio, although I have to point out, Henry, you've put in quite a shift this week. You will be standing in for Rachel Johnson at 7 o'clock this evening. And you've been doing your day job as well. Would you allow me to say you must be absolutely shattered?
Yeah, that's probably fair to say, yeah. Very tired, but interesting.
Can I ask, have you spent any time this week in the, shall we say, the more salubrious or the more well-heeled parts of London?
Yeah, I've passed through, a couple of times.
OK, so you're very, very tired.
Yeah.
And you've been walking in some of the richer parts of town.
Correct.
OK, I just have to ask you, you haven't encountered Nadeem Zahawi on your travels at all?
I was wondering why people were jumping off the pavement as I was walking past, sidestepping me.
So, we're here to continue our investigation into what would happen if we treated Nigel Farage's party with the same levels of scrutiny that are generally reserved for everybody else. And just a quick tally, I think we're up to 18 stories. This was only supposed to be done and dusted by 12 o'clock on Monday, and here we are at nearly 1 o'clock on Friday, and it's time for Dear 5 of the Farage Files. What have we got?
Pick a number between 1 and 4.
3.
3, OK. Let's talk about Kent, which, to remind people, is the shop window, what a reform government would look like. They passed a budget last night which saw councillors vote for a 3.99% council tax increase. And the Liberal Democrat leader of the opposition has accused them of mounting an attack on the vulnerable and accused them of extreme risk. So, as I say, council tax going up in Kent by 3.99%. There are many unhappy, feeling that they thought a reform council would be cutting council tax. Lyndon Kemcaran, the leader, though, says it is a sensible, low-tax budget, although opposition councillors point out that the financial risk is now £410 million. And just to build on that point about an attack on the vulnerable, Anthony Hook, the Liberal Democrat leader of the opposition there, says that he, for instance, points out cuts of £1.2 million from fostering services.
No way.
And £700,000 from fostering for children with disabilities. Brian Collins, who's the Reform deputy leader of the council, said the budget was carefully thought through. Some people call it risky. I call it bold. And Lyndon Kemcaran, the leader, said that they had a difficult inheritance at that council.
So the funding for families that foster children, or the services that handle the fostering of children and particularly children with disabilities.
They've made cuts in certain areas. That is one of the sort of overall budgets that has seen cuts.
What's the risk? Do we know? Do we understand why it's risky?
It's to do,
or bold, as Brian Collins calls it.
It's to do with their overall exposure to financial risk in terms of investment and a few other things. I'm not entirely. You'd have to get a qualified economist on, I think.
Well, that rules out everyone in reform. Number one.
Well, this is what you were touching on just before the you played that clip of Sadiq Khan with your earlier guest, Josh. Reform UK facing a Commons rebuke over their synagogue visit. This is the Reform Jewish Alliance that they've launched, and of course there were instances where people weren't happy in the room, as you heard just then. Well, one of the issues now is that if you do... So the Palace of Westminster Parliament is obviously in the constituency of Westminster. We understand that, but that is where they go to work. However, if it is a political visit or a visit to a place of worship, you do tell the MP that you're visiting as a matter of courtesy. And Sir Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker, has said that they ignored Reform UK's strict parliamentary protocol and rules when they spoke at this synagogue. Rachel Blake, the MP, Labour MP for Cities of London, said that she wasn't notified. It was a political visit. She'd like to have been told. So at a time where we need to work together in our communities to tackle anti-Semitism, we could have done so. And Richard Tice said, though, he said, I work in Westminster, so do you want me to tell you every time I go to work?
Not quite getting the point there.
Not quite.
No, bless him. So I've done the, for people just joining us, I've already channeled the spirit of Big Brother by describing this as Dear 5 of the Farage Files. I'm now going to channel a rather older television programme by asking you to tell us which story is in 4.
We have got... Well, there's two councillor stories. The first one is the Durham councillor, because we've been keeping a tally, James, of Reform councillors who've resigned, either those who were elected in 24 or who've been elected subsequently. This is Councillor Nick Brown in Durham, and he's coruscating of the deputy leader there, who is a man called Darren Grimes. And he says, it is clear that certain members of the Reform leadership, including yourself, but that's to the leader, Mr. Husband, Councillor Husband, but principally your deputy, Councillor Grimes, hold members of their own administration in very serious disdain and consequently refuse to engage in any meaningful dialogue. Now, this is building on work done by the Telegraph newspaper, where they have looked at how much the Reform-led Durham Council have spent on complaints that have been made against their councillors. And the Telegraph have found out £19,000, or just over £18,000 has been spent by Reform-led Durham Council in tackling complaints against its own councillors, or addressing complaints against its own councillors. Mr. Brown, Councillor Brown, has said he's made a formal complaint over bullying against Darren Grimes. He made that a week before he resigned. He said, I've spoken with a lot of people I'd describe as core Reform voters, and every one of them says they've seen no change, saying that the party's failed to live up to its promises. An independent councillor says, I've never seen such horrible, aggressive and nasty behaviour in all of my 29 years of being a councillor. Just on that, James, one of the other issues is they've changed the complaints procedure in Durham. So there's now a new subcommittee that reduces the role of independent officers but gives more power to reform members of that subcommittee.
Right.
And so Councillor Shuttleworth says it's now a kangaroo court.
John Shuttleworth,
where you have reform councillors judging complaints against their own party.
Sounds perfectly normal. All sounds perfectly above board. And is there one more? Or
there's one more.
Count?
In fact, I need to say Darren Grimes on the last one said Reform UK...
That name. Why do I know that name?
He was involved in the Brexit campaign.
Oh, that's the fella.
Reform UK, yes, was elected
funny little fella.
Clean up Durham County Council, not to maintain the status quo. Change of this scale naturally attracts resistance from those who benefited from the old failing system. And another curious one, hot off the press, this has happened in the last hour or so, a couple of hours. Reform UK has been plunged into chaos in Sunderland, so say a local outlet, because their newly elected ward councillor is no longer a party representative. He's been in the role only 76 days.
All right, is he tired? Because if he is, he should steer clear of Nadeem Zahawi.
He was elected at the end of November in a by-election triggered following the death of a Labour councillor, so he's only attended one full council meeting representing Reform, but he has, Reform have said he's betrayed the electorate. We're disappointed in his decision to leave the party so soon after his election. He's betrayed local voters and supporters. He says, though, that he was always planning to see out his term until May and then was sort of keen to take the whip away and to be an independent. But he said there was so much pressure from Reform, from his colleagues, to change his mind that they end up thinking sort of, stuff this, I'm going to go as an independent.
Well, it never ends. Well, in fact, it probably does never end, but we can't keep this up forever. You've got other things to do. You're standing in for Rachel Johnson at 7 o'clock today.
I know. What will we talk about?
I don't know. But it's a miracle that you've managed to get, by my reckoning, 22 stories in front of us this week. And that's 1 week, 5 shows, during which we've dedicated 10 minutes to wondering what would happen if Reform UK was scrutinised at anything like the level that other parties are by right-wing media. 22 stories.
Lots of stories.
Lots of stories. Great work, Henry.